I've been thinking about it for a while, and now is a good time to divorce you.
We met in college, got married at 25, and were blessed with 2 children. However, despite having 2 kids, David showed no interest in them. Instead, he emotionally abused me, and I endured the mental pain while continuing to live with him. One day, I received a call that David had been injured, so I rushed to the hospital with our daughter, Emily. When we arrived, we found a woman and a small child there. As soon as I recognized them, David declared that he wanted a divorce and continued,
Let me introduce them. This is the woman who will be my wife, and this is her child. Of course, my child.
He blatantly announced the existence of his mistress and their child, telling me he wanted a divorce. I was left speechless by the suddenness of it all. Then, Emily, who had been silent up until that moment, spoke up.
Dad, is that all you have to say? We didn't come here just to check on your injury.
David furrowed his brows at her words.
I came to give you this. Do you not know about it?
When David looked at the documents Emily handed him, his face turned pale almost instantly. My name is Michelle, and I'm a 48-year-old housewife. My husband, David, has been working late every day for the past few years, and he's often away on business trips, so he's hardly ever home. We've barely seen each other, and our marriage has broken down. The only reason I haven't divorced him is because of our son, Sam. I met David in college through a class, and as we worked together on a group project and talked, we bonded over our shared interest in travel.
What? I've been wanting to go there too.
Right? I've been dying to go there before I kick the bucket. Let's go together.
When David talked about traveling, he was so excited and full of life that it was dazzling. Because of that, we started going out to different places together, and after many dates at various tourist spots, we eventually began dating. When David asked me to be his girlfriend, he did it in a very romantic way, at the top of a Ferris wheel at an amusement park. It's often said that college couples tend to break up when they start job hunting, but that wasn't the case for us. Instead, the start of our careers led to our decision to get married. The truth is, I had been without parents for as long as I could remember, so the thought of having a new family filled me with excitement and anticipation.
We're going to have a family now. I'm really looking forward to this new chapter in our lives.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait. Let's do our best together from now on.
David joined the small company run by his father, and he's been working closely with him to eventually take over as president. When we first got married, both of us were working. I worked hard for about 2 years, but when I found out I was pregnant, the morning sickness made it hard for me to keep up with work. Since it was our first child, David was really worried about me.
Did you take the day off again today? Is morning sickness really that tough?
Yes, it's been really bad, and I couldn't go to work today. But I managed to cook dinner, so please have some. I'm sorry I can't eat with you.
If you're feeling sick, just rest. I'll take care of everything else.
When I was 27, I gave birth to our daughter, Emily. Since more and more couples were working, it was hard to find a spot in daycare right away.
I have a 1-year-old child. Is there any chance you can take her?
I'm sorry, we're full right now and aren't accepting new children.
I see. Thank you for your time.
I contacted dozens of daycares, like a job search, but they all turned me down. Because of that, I had to quit my job to take care of Emily. It wasn't anyone's fault that we couldn't get Emily into daycare, and it certainly wasn't her fault. Despite my anxiety about taking care of Emily, I resolved to do my best.
David, I've had to quit my job, but I'd really appreciate it if you could help with the housework and childcare.
What? I'm the one working to support you guys, so taking care of the kids is your job. If you can even do that, are you just useless?
I was shocked to see David, who had always been kind, suddenly turn into a completely different person.
Where did the David I knew go?
As soon as I asked for help with childcare and housework, David changed completely.
Why is the house so dirty when you've been home all day? Maybe it's true that growing up without parents messes you up. You're really useless.
As his demeaning comments increased, I found myself struggling mentally. As David's abusive remarks increased, it seemed to coincide with his success in expanding the company he had inherited from his father, growing it rapidly. 5 years later, the company David was running, thanks to his hard work, had become one of the leading businesses in the area. By that time, I had given birth to our second child, our son Sam. But despite David's growing success, he only provided us with the bare minimum to live on, while he continued to spend money recklessly.
David, both Emily and Sam are reaching the age where they're starting to cost more. So could we increase the household budget a little?
I'm already giving you plenty of money. If you can manage with that, you must be out of your mind.
Even at this point, David's abusive comments hadn't stopped, and every time he came home, it tore me apart emotionally. When Sam was 3, I discovered that David had a mistress. I'd been noticing the scent of women's perfume on him, and I accidentally saw him holding hands with an unfamiliar woman while shopping at the grocery store. It turned out that David had another house and was living with this mistress. I started to feel like he saw me as nothing more than a nanny, raising his kids and keeping the house. Finding out about his mistress made me decide to file for divorce. However, around the same time, Sam fell ill and was bedridden for about a week. Since he'd never been this sick before, I was worried and took him to the hospital, where we found out he had a heart condition.
Michelle, this might come as a shock, but your son Sam has a heart condition.
What? But no one mentioned anything when he was little.
It's something that's hard to detect when they're young, so it's understandable that it wasn't discovered until now.
Even though the doctor explained this, I was devastated that I hadn't noticed Sam's suffering until now.
But Sam's condition can be cured, right?
It's difficult to say, but Sam will need a heart donor. The first step is to register with the transplant network. I hope a donor is found while Sam is still with us, but it's hard to guarantee that.
A transplant. So if he gets the transplant, Sam will be saved, right?
The possibility of a transplant brought a glimmer of hope.
If a transplant can be done, Sam can be saved. However, until a donor is found, Sam's condition must not worsen. It can take time to find a donor, and unfortunately, there are cases where patients pass away from complications before a transplant can happen.
Hearing this from the doctor left me with a mix of emotions. While a successful transplant could save Sam, there was no guarantee that a donor would be found. If it were something like a kidney, where there are two, and I were a match, I could have given it to him, but of all things, it had to be his heart. Sam was placed on strict bed rest and was admitted to the hospital.
Why did this have to happen to Sam?
With these thoughts weighing on me, I walked slowly home. When I got home, I was surprised to find David and Emily watching TV in the living room.
David, Emily, I need to talk to you.
When I began to speak, Emily, who had been watching TV, noticed my serious expression, turned off the TV, and gave me her full attention.
Sam has been diagnosed with a heart condition. The only way to save him is with a heart transplant.
I see, understood. I'll cover the medical expenses.
David's surprisingly calm response caught me off guard.
How can he be so composed after finding out his own son has a heart condition?
It seemed that David was willing to pay for the treatment because Sam was supposed to be his successor. However, if I divorced him, I wouldn't be able to afford the treatment, so I had no choice but to abandon the idea of divorce. David did provide financial support for Sam's medical treatment.
I'll pay for Sam's treatment, but as for the day-to-day care, that's still your responsibility, just like before.
True to his word, David didn't get involved at all. Since I was a full-time housewife, after finishing my chores, I would go to Sam's hospital room to take care of him. I'd leave the hospital before Emily came home so I could be there to welcome her. Even though Emily was still young, she seemed to understand that her little brother Sam was in a tough situation.
I'll do what I can. Mom, you should focus on taking care of Sam.
Emily's kind words helped me, and she even pitched in. Together, we balanced the housework and supported each other as we faced Sam's battle with his illness. Before I knew it, Emily was in her second year of high school. During a parent-teacher meeting, I was told that we should start discussing and deciding on her future plans. If she wanted to go to college, it was about time to start preparing. Emily, have you thought about what you want to do? Do you have any plans?
I'd like to go to college if possible, but do you think that's even an option? I don't think Dad would allow it.
Emily spoke to me with a resigned tone, as if she had already given up. Emily has always done so well in school. I want her to go to college.
What's the point of a girl going to college? I'm already paying for Sam's treatment. Do you have any idea how expensive that is? And now you want money for college too? You've got to be kidding me.
When I asked David about covering Emily's college expenses, he flat out refused, citing Sam's medical bills as the reason. I'm sorry, Emily, he said, we can't afford to pay for your college.
I kind of expected it. I guess Dad really doesn't care about me. Don't worry about it, Mom. I'll figure out a path that's within my reach.
Emily, I'm really sorry, but if you need help or want to talk, I'm here for you, no matter what. Though I felt guilty, I resolved to fully support whatever decision Emily made about her future. David showed no interest in Emily, but despite that, she managed to graduate without taking time off. Together, Emily and I faced the challenges of Sam's difficult illness, and the three of us persevered through it all.
We found a heart donor for Sam.
Really, that means he can have the surgery, right? Sam's doctor came running to tell me the news, and I was overwhelmed with both shock and joy at hearing they had found a heart donor.
Yes, as long as he rests until the day of the surgery, everything should be fine.
Thank you so much. I'll go tell Sam. Unable to contain my excitement, I rushed into Sam's hospital room. Emily, who had been coming to help take care of Sam every day, noticed me rushing in.
Mom, what's going on? Why are you so out of breath? Did something happen?
Both Emily and Sam looked at me with curious expressions as I caught my breath. They found a donor for Sam.
What? Really?
Yes, Sam, you've done so well. I stroked Sam's head and hugged him, tears of joy filling our eyes. Sam was 16 years old when we received the news that a heart donor had been found. The surgery was scheduled for the very next day. As we celebrated together, feeling that all our efforts had paid off, the time for Sam's operation approached.
Mom, Emily, thank you so much for everything. I'll do my best in the surgery.
With those words, Sam was wheeled into the operating room. 7 hours later, the doctor emerged and informed us that the surgery had been a success. A month after the operation, Sam, who couldn't move right after the surgery, was undergoing rehab and learning to walk again. Before I knew it, he was walking normally and was set to be discharged in just a few days. On the day of his discharge, we finally returned home, feeling relieved that the long battle with his illness was over. Although I was overjoyed that Sam's ordeal was behind us, I couldn't help but think about a conversation I could now have, one that I'd been avoiding because of his medical expenses. I decided that I would bring up the topic of divorce after Sam had settled back into his normal life post-recovery. Then, the house phone, which hardly ever rings, started to buzz. Hello, this is Michelle.
Michelle, David has been taken to the hospital.
The moment the nurse said that, my mind went completely blank, and I froze. I realized Emily noticed and was coming toward me.
Mom, what's wrong?
David has been taken to the hospital.
What? We need to get there fast.
Panicked by the sudden notice, before we knew it, we were in a taxi, rushing to the hospital. When we arrived and checked in at reception, the nurse directed us to David's room, and we hurried to see him. David had broken his leg and was hospitalized because he needed surgery. Emily and I rushed to the hospital because we needed to talk to David. At that time, Sam was out because he had been invited to a recovery celebration party by his friends. When we got to the room and saw David's condition, I noticed there was a young woman and a small child by his side. It instantly became clear to me that the woman and child were David's mistress and their child. David looked startled when he saw me rush in and began to speak.
This is Julie, the woman I love, and her child, Jessica. I've been thinking about it for a while, and now's a good time. I'm divorcing you.
With those words, he handed me the divorce papers he had prepared in advance. You mean a divorce? I've suspected this for a while, but you're really going through with it, right? Hearing him say that, I decided it was time to tell him what I had planned to say after Sam had settled back into his normal routine.
And between me and Julie, we only had Jessica, so I'll be taking custody of Sam.
What? After everything, you're going to kick me and Emily out while you take Sam?
Exactly. I'm going to marry Julie and eventually pass the business down to Sam. I'll live a nice, carefree life.
What about Jessica? It sounds like you're leaving her out of this plan.
Sam can take care of Jessica. He can support her, can't he?
Julie spoke up, as if it were only natural, trying to push the responsibility of caring for Jessica onto Sam. Holding back my anger, I signed the divorce papers that David had pushed in front of me. I'll give you the divorce. I'll even go file these papers right after this, but there's no way I'm giving up custody of Sam. I absolutely refuse.
Sam was born to be my successor. There's no chance I'll let someone like you have custody.
Hearing this, Emily, who had been listening nearby, held up a document for David to see.
Dad, can you still say that after looking at this? Can you really support Julie and Jessica?
The document Emily showed him was evidence of David's involvement in fraud at his company. After graduating high school, Emily had decided not to pursue college, and instead enrolled in the police academy. Thanks to her hard work during high school, and the money I had saved from the household budget David provided, she was able to enter the academy. She had learned that although the academy required a $1,000 enrollment fee, the rest of her education would be free, and she would even receive a salary. So, she had come to me and asked if she could go to the police academy. David had never taken much interest in Emily, so he didn't know the details of her career. He only knew she worked as a public servant. During her time in the academy, Emily started investigating her father's company. With the help of her superiors and colleagues, she uncovered evidence of fraud and illegal sales at David's company. I also contributed by secretly gathering evidence of tax evasion and bribery from David's study whenever I had the chance.
How do you have that?
I hadn't told you, but Emily enrolled in the police academy to become a police officer. David tried to make a run for it, but with his broken leg, there was no escaping. At that moment, the police arrived, and David was placed under arrest.
David, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of fraud and illegal sales. You're under arrest.
Before I knew it, the police had arrived, and David was being taken away, leaving Julie standing there in shock. Julie, I'll be suing you for damages for the affair.
Why me? I don't have the money to pay for any damages.
Julie started making a fuss as soon as I mentioned the lawsuit. However, when we later spoke through our lawyers, it turned out David had given her an apartment, and she ended up selling it to pay the compensation. After David's arrest, I took the divorce papers he had given me and filed them at the family court. Even though it was after his arrest, the divorce went through without any problems. Following his arrest, a trial was held, and David was sentenced to 5 years in prison. 5 years later, David completed his prison sentence. Due to David's trouble with the law, his company had gone bankrupt. Despite all the hard work his father put into building the company, it went bankrupt because of David's actions. After his release, David tried to find a new job but was unsuccessful, leaving him unable to support himself. As a result of his unhealthy lifestyle, he passed away rather suddenly. At David's funeral, I attended with Emily and Sam, though mostly out of obligation. Julie showed up at the funeral and immediately started pressuring Emily and Sam to give up their inheritance.
I'm David's wife now, so I have the right to inherit his assets. Since David was a business owner, there must be savings, right? There's no way I'm letting you two take everything. That would be completely unfair.
Julie boasted about being married to David and continued to demand that Emily, Sam, and I listen to her. It seemed Julie had waited for David during his 5 years in prison and filed the marriage papers after his release.
My father's inheritance? I've already started working, so I don't need it. You can have it.
I didn't really want it either, so if you want it, go ahead.
After hearing Emily and Sam agree to give up the inheritance, Julie began celebrating with David's savings.
Now I've got a ton of money. It won't be long until I'm living the easy life.
Julie raised her glass in celebration, looking absolutely thrilled, as if she'd come into a fortune. Emily, Sam, and I watched her in disgust, looking at her with nothing but contempt. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Julie.
What's going on?
What do you mean? Without any context, Julie started speaking, but I didn't hesitate to ask.
I thought David had a lot of inheritance, but with the company bankrupt, there's no personal wealth at all. In fact, it's just debt, and not the kind of debt anyone can pay off on their own.
Really? So the bankruptcy left him with that much debt, right?
You knew all along, didn't you? There's no way I can pay that. Could you help me out?
When Julie had the nerve to ask me to help her pay off the debt, I couldn't believe what an absurd request she was making. I said nothing in response, ignored her, and hung up the phone. After that, Julie tried calling me several more times, but I continued to ignore her. Fed up with Julie calling hundreds of times, I finally blocked her number. It turned out that after using what little cash David had left to celebrate at his funeral, Julie had inherited not only his assets, but also his debt. I heard through the grapevine that Julie, unable to repay the massive debt with her own money, had started working at a nightclub to pay it off. I saw it as nothing more than her getting what she deserved. She had knowingly been involved with a married man and was made to pay compensation for the affair. In the end, she married the man she thought was wealthy, only to end up shouldering his debt. 6 months after Julie's last call, Emily gave birth to a child. She had met a wonderful man after everything and ended up getting married. Sam, too, recovered well from his heart transplant and now lives a happy life, doing what he loves. As for me, I live alone now, but I'm busy preparing the house for Emily, who will be coming to stay with me after the baby's birth. I'm filled with joy and excitement as I eagerly await the return of Emily and my grandchild, ready to welcome the new addition to our family.